Hello, guys. Welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. Now, I've nearly lost my voice, but what a fight we have just been treated to between Derek Chisora and Kubrat Pulev. Before we get into it, guys, do us a favour, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really does help us out. But we're not going to mess around. Let's get straight into this main event. Finally, Derek Chisora has won a points decision. And also won a fight. Let's not forget, while they were close and against top names, going into this one off three back-to-back losses, and still against another top 15, possibly top 10 heavyweight in Kubrat Pulev. I don't even know where to start. The fight was thrilling. It was messy at times, I think. Pulev, as we know, he brings that stand-up European style, likes to hold, hit round the back of the head. And it was annoying me, I've got to be honest. Sort of while they were clinching, Pulev was turning his head, so Chisora was getting sort of told off. Fortunately, no points taken off him early on for hitting in the back of the head, but he really had no choice because that was all that was on offer once Pulev had turned his head. Um, I mean, Pulev, I dread to think how many final warnings Marcus McDonald gave him. Not the best performance for me from the referee tonight, but fortunately, it does not matter. What really won this fight for Derek was he was relentless. The first 3-4 rounds in particular, he set a relentless pace to the body. And, when they were clinching and Pulev was holding, clearly Don Charles had really prepared him properly for this fight because he was just like landing heavy, heavy shots to the Pulev's body. And Pulev, his body was marking up. And I think, the commentary team, they kept talking about how calm Pulev looked in those first sort of third of the fight, and that started to slip away, I think. I mean, I will credit Pulev in fairness. Clearly, he's conditioning. David Hay pointed it out, and he's absolutely bang on. His conditioning was bang on because while it will have taken the snap out of his punches later on, in fairness to Pulev, he was still in that fight till the very end. So, and obviously the plan for Chisora would have been to sort of negate him by using the body. But that's definitely what won Chisora this fight. Now, we did get the standard Derek Chisora overhand rights, and seeing on social media, a lot of people criticise it. Some of the shots, it was like his wrist landing, and I do get that criticism, but I also think don't watch a Derek Chisora fight if that's what your problem is going to be, because we know what Derek's about, and he fights off his instincts so well. And I mean, he voluntarily, and he's been doing it for years now, sits himself on the ropes. And at times, Pulev was almost nervous to go in and start throwing heavy shots because he knew that that shot was coming. And in fairness to Chisora, he mixed it up slightly tonight. There was the odd jab to the body, then the overhand right, and that had success. He nicked for me. I had it 116, 112. One or two rounds, I think I think I gave Pulev the third, which he could have possibly given to Chisora. And then the 10th round for me, it was an incredible round. And, Chisora nicked it in the last minute. But I will say, in fairness, and Pulev may look back on this with regret, he threw a lot of shots. I think through 8, he'd only landed 23% of those shots. Chisora had landed 32% and thrown slightly less. So Chisora was definitely more accurate tonight. And, I think his name is Barry Jones on commentary, and he was sort of bigging up Pulev's work, which has annoyed me a little bit because he was making sense. Yes, Pulev was throwing more shots, but all it was really doing, instead of landing on Chisora, was making Chisora have to work harder for his openings. So, just an incredible, incredible fight. And, I think the scores, one had it 116, 112 Pulev, one judge had it 116, 112 Chisora, which obviously, as I've just said, I agreed with. The other judge, I think it was 115, 113 to Chisora. But the key takeaway is Derek Chisora is beating him. I think, sadly, that'll probably be the end of Kubrat Pulev, 41 years of age. And, he's certainly, in fairness, his stock, if anything's gone up, certainly in the UK. So, whether we'll see him as get a couple of paydays out of the zone as a gatekeeper to world level, possibly. But his motivation going into this was to get another world title shot. Sadly, I didn't think it would happen before the fight. It's definitely not going to happen now, is it? As for Derek, he moves on. As they said, the show goes on. A lot of calls for him to retire after the second Parker defeat at Christmas. No, he's come back. He's shown how much he's got in the tank. And I think we've just got to say Derek Chisora is superhuman at this point because he's 38 years of age. He's been in war after war after war. And I know it's his nickname, but my God, does he live up to it. He's called out Deontay Wilder, or said that's who he wants anyway. He's told Eddie Hearn, I want Wilder next, because then he'll have fought everybody in his era, bar Anthony Joshua, in fairness. I do think Wilder would be one too much, as long as the Fury fights hasn't taken too much out of him. But the key is Chisora's going to get a big fight, let's be honest. And power to him. Incredible night. Another one in the career of Derek Chisora. We also had a good undercard tonight, and we're going to look at that now. Starting off with Solomon Dakers. Now, I was a little bit disappointed that, he's moved 4-0. He won over 8 rounds against Espindola, who was going into it with a 7-4 record. So it was a winning record. It's just a typical fight to build Dakers. But I'm a little bit disappointed because Dakers, for me, the talent that he's got, he should be fighting on the main card, and he keeps being on before the bell. And I just think, it's a video that me and Ray will be back next week as well, I should say. And it's a video we're going to do. But with where Matchroom are in their stable at the minute, for me, Dakers is someone who could have the potential to do a bit more. So I think hopefully he's done now with before the bell. He's 4-0. Let's get him in there. It's great to see him get 8 rounds under his belt. And I hope he's back soon because he's had a bit of time out with injuries and stuff. Hope he's back soon. Build on this. And he's a very, very exciting talent. Next, Fabio Wardley. Now, I'd argue this card was cursed because obviously we know Felix Cash pulled out earlier today of his fight with Vaughan Alexander due to sickness. Hope Felix gets better soon. I hope there's not more to it because I'm a big fan of Felix Cash. I really am. But he has pulled out of 4 fights within, I think it's about 18 months, 2 years now. So I hope there's not more to it. But I hope we see him back soon. There's got to be some big fights out there for Felix Cash at 160. Back onto Fabio Wardley now. Obviously, as we know, he was fighting Kingsley Abbey. He'd given Jaron Anderson a tough night. So it was going to be, for me, it was like sort of perfect preparation for a British title shot for Wardley. At the 11th hour yesterday, I think they said it was within 24 hours, but it was yesterday afternoon, the news broke anyway. Abbey couldn't get into the country. And you know what? Massive respect to Chris Healy. He's in the top 25 in Britain on BoxRec. And obviously, I know he fought David Adelaide at Wembley. So a great few months for him. But he did step in, which, Fabio Wardley said it himself. He's got a set of bollocks on him. And fair play to him. But it was just, sadly, the typical fight. Healy, he wasn't in shape. Was clearly off the sofa, as the old saying goes, for this one. And in fairness to Healy, he tried to land a few early doors and cause a couple of problems, but you could just tell Fabio Wardley was just waiting. And, he then did go into him in the first round and got the knockdown. Fair play, Healy did get up. I was a bit like, oh, that'll be that. But no, he got up, but he did end very early in the second. As soon as Wardley landed a flush right, you could see Healy was questioning his decision to step in. So, respect to him. Fabio Wardley's now 14-0, 13 straight stoppages, let's not forget. So he's the form man, he's more active. But it's got to be Nathan Gorman next, hasn't it? That British title fight. I know they're in different stables, but Eddie said he'll be talking to Calais Sowland. They want that fight next. And for me, it's got to be. Wardley needs a big fight now. A lot was made of his white-collar background and all the rest of it. But, he's shown that he can fight, he can box. The guy's a talent for me, and he's really coming on now. But he needs to be tested because otherwise he's going to get stale and it could go wrong for him. Next, we had Kevin Aguiago versus Maciek. Now, Maciek gave Anthony Fowler a thoughtful night's work. I won't say a tough night's work because Ant Fowler did win it and win it quite comfortably. But he asked questions and he's tough. So for Kevin Aguiago, this was always going to be a tough assignment, especially with him dropping down to 154. But in fairness, Aguiaco, he came through it well. He was very fast to start, boxing beautifully. Then in sort of round 7, I think he got a bit complacent almost. He got a bit lazy with his defence. and Maciek landed a couple of shots that I think, let's be honest, Aguiarco, with all his amateur background, shouldn't really be getting landed on him. But it's one of those things, that's what these learning fights are about. But he did do enough. He got the win on points, and I think it's 10 very valuable rounds, particularly now a lot's been made of this moving down a weight, and he's done it well. I think he looked good on the scales. He looked good tonight. And I'm glad he got the 10 rounds in, because if he had have managed to stop Maciek, yes, it would have been a big statement. But the flip side of that coin is there might still be a question mark in his own head about can he do the distance at 154 with, being a bit more weight depleted. And he's got those answers tonight. Yes, he can. So for me, at 12-0, 7 stoppage wins. They talked about Spike O'Sullivan next, and Aguiarco himself said, I want to go to Belfast, obviously where he's from. And that would probably sell out the Odyssey. Aguiarco said it himself, him and Spike O'Sullivan. And O'Sullivan, he's an experienced gatekeeper now, isn't he? So again, that wouldn't be, for me, that would be a good last learning fight for him before he goes in with, we've talked about that bubbling away 154 domestic and world scene. It's a stacked division, isn't it? I think it might be a touch too early for Aguiarco, but we had Troy Williams on a couple of weeks ago for the British title. That would be a fantastic fight. Hopefully Williamson's going to fight Metcalf first, although comments on social media tonight, that may not be the case. But yeah, massive respect to Aguiarco. Great job. And I think Eddie Hearn, he's got a lot of stock in him, hasn't he? The way he talks about him. So definitely one to watch within the Matchroom stable going forward. Next up, we had Ramla Ali versus the Argentinian Rojas. I'm going to be controversial here. Ali boxed well, but I do think at times, particularly earlier on, she got caught. The defence needs a little bit of work and tightening. But, technically she is very sound. And, she won tonight on points again. She's gone 6-0, still just the one stoppage win. But she's an inspiration, I think, and that's the story. She had a lot of fans in the O2 tonight. Bar Chisora, she was probably getting, the biggest cheers of the night. So fair play to her. She did talk herself about how it's easy for her to stay stateside, around her life and training camp and whatnot. But she does a lot, she's a model. They talked a lot while the fight was going on, which sort of says what kind of fight it was, if I'm being brutally honest, about the charity work she does, and she's an ambassador for immigration. So massive respect to Ramla Ali. She stays undefeated tonight. I still think she needs another couple of learning fights before, we've talked a lot on this channel about the lack of depth in women's boxing, and while it is coming on and it's improving at a rapid rate of knots, I do think she needs another couple before she jumps in with the big names of that super bantamweight division. But she's a talent. With Eddie Hearn behind her, 258 management, I'm sure she's going to be sort of pushed to the sky, and deservedly so. It's a great story. Lastly, we had the chief support. I'm gutted about this one, truly. Israel Madramov, Michelle Sorrow too. In our preview, I said how excited I was for this fight. Madramov going into this 8-0. Sorrow, he is that gatekeeper, isn't he, to world level at 154, but it's a world title eliminator. So the WBA had reordered it. We got it. I was excited. I genuinely thought, even with Chisora on the card, who his fights are eye-catching, I thought this could steal the show. And sadly, it ended in a technical draw. It was waved off in the third round due to an accidental clash of heads. And it was accidental on Madramov's part. But Sorrow, it was a cut just above the eye. I mean, it's a bit annoying, really, because at first it was just seeping blood or everywhere. So you thought, oh, that's that. But then I've got to be honest, as the announcement was made of it being waved off and it being a technical draw, the bleeding had stopped, and you could see that it wasn't going to run into Sorrow's eye anyway. So I do wonder, and while Madramov is a class act, he was on top in the first 2 rounds, and in the second round looked like he was, building to getting Sorrow out of there regardless. He could have had another couple of rounds, and then we could have at least got the decision and let Madramov move on from this one. He's going to be fast-tracked to world level, isn't he? Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, DAZN, they're all behind him. So he's going to be fast-tracked. And it's a shame for Sorrow as well, because he possibly does, and again, the commentary team mentioned it, but it's sort of true. He possibly gets forgotten about now as the gatekeeper, because I can't see there being a demand for a third fight unless the WBA decide, no, we want the third fight. So absolutely devastating. Now, it is like the cursed card. This is ended on a high with Derek Chisora winning. But, between Kingsley Bay can't come in at the 11th hour, Felix Cash pulling out on the day, Chief Support, which had potential fight of the year written all over it, done as a technical draw. We needed the high to finish, otherwise this would have been a very, very depressing video. But we got it. Derek Chisora's won. That's the takeaway. Let's see a big, big fight for him next. Guys, if you're still with me, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Ray's back next week. We've got a lot of content planned. So, yeah, keep an eye out for it. And we'll see you on the next one.